Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I have a dame to introduce to you tonight, Dame Linda Pinizzotto, who was entered into the Order of St. George. And that's going to be interesting to understand how she accomplished that feat and what it is. And in addition, she is a very experienced real estate broker here in Mississauga. She's been involved in Southern Ontario real estate for quite a long time. And for numerous years, she was president of the Condominium Association of Ontario. And so she's expert in what's going on in condominiums. And I've run into her on numerous occasions in Mississauga civil society because she's been very active in Mississauga Summit issues, in transit issues, in real estate issues. Someone that I think really understands, what it takes to grow Mississauga and grow it in a positive manner. So, Linda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning. I
Good morning.
appreciate the invitation.
So, how did you become a dame, and what is a dame?
A Dame of the Order of St. George. Well, first I should go back to the Order of St. George. The Order of St. George has actually been around since the 1400s, and it's actually all over the world. So we are the Grand Priory of the Americas, which means it's North America. And the division that we have, that I'm involved in, is Toronto. It's really interesting because when they contacted me, I actually did not know. And what happens is it's a recognition, almost like a sorority kind of a thing, where key players in the military, particularly it tends to be in the military, and key players have done, obviously they're highly decorated, former generals, majors, I think military that have gone over and beyond with their call of duty. Some have created schools in third world countries, for instance. So it's an extreme honor. And within the military itself, everybody knows what a dame. Women are dames, men are knighted. So that actually means I was knighted and spurred in order to now be a part of the Order of St. George.
Well,
So
congratulations.
I'm blessed. It was excellent.
It sounds like a great recognition and a great honor. You've been very involved in real estate. Tell us what you've been doing.
Well, everything under the sun. Actually, back in typically back, I'll give you one. In 1996, I actually put a $70 million bid to build the Mississauga Sports Arena when they put the bid out for the Hershey Center prior to all of that. And it was interesting because we had an incredible platform. We didn't want $1 to build that facility. I should show you the plans one day. I think you'll find it fascinating. It was a
I'd love
private
to see those plans.
partnership. Pardon me?
I'd love to see the plans.
Oh yeah, you would love it. The concept was it was all mine. And what happened was there was four parties. I'm sure you would know about it because you're so highly active yourself. Murray Bain and Elliston, PCL. And then I joined together with a gentleman by the name of Macklin Hancock, and a very prominent business person here in Mississauga. And we put together a whole project which basically would have cost the city of Mississauga not one penny, not one penny. We weren't looking for funding. We had Canadian corporate funding on board. The team players, we had a company called the name of LMI. I actually put the consortium together. I was not a real estate agent in the deal. I was part of the submission. Actually, one of the key players with Macklin. So I contacted him, he came on board. But we had the owners of Cash America, believe it or not. We had a man by the name of Mike McGee that used to be with a huge company, LMI, out of Houston, Texas. He later became the head CEO of Ticketmaster Worldwide. So you can see that so many players that were involved in that. Sadly, the idea was to have a public-private partnership and not pay citizens money, but that's not what happened. In the end, the city decided to build it. It doesn't make very much revenue. In fact, it costs the city to run it. It needs a really good, financially savvy mayor in our city to be able to take a strong look and see what's going on over there. And I'm going to pinpoint that because it had so much opportunity and it failed.
I'm told that every single time it opens, it loses money because it never can get enough, people, enough attendance to actually justify opening it. The capacity was, overbuilt at one point in time, and we don't have, the attendance generating attractions or events or teams that actually bring enough people in. And so much so that the Mississauga Steelheads have packed up and moved to Brampton because they want a smaller facility because it looks too empty when they play in Mississauga. So what went wrong?
They don't get very much revenue. The city takes all the revenues from the concessions. The banners up above are different, like the concept, the money geared concept. Even when the Ice Dogs were there, I've got files on that are like this thick. And only because of me being a principal at that initial time, we wanted it. When I developed that, the idea was is any shareholder that got involved in that proposal. Okay, your last name is Crombie. Under the C section, there would be a star embedded right in the concrete as a memory, a kind of a tribute of the original investors. And it could be that particular share could be transferred down to family members. It could operate completely on its own, and it would be a win-win situation with the city of Mississauga.
Was your location going to be in the same spot?
Oh, absolutely. We were using that 70 acres. I preferred, I had actually toured another part, another spot, which isn't in Mississauga. It would have been right across from the Ford plant. And then, but this one here, our concept, we had banquet halls, we had food courts. I was already dealing with Air Canada. This is before the ACC was actually agreed or even came on the table. I was so ahead of the game. The package was a complete package ready to go.
Well,
And
I think that some of the failures, as you may know, I've been very involved in arena development. I was chief financial officer of the Ottawa Senators and was involved in what we were doing, proposing to do in Ottawa. I was with Molson's very involved in the financing construction of the Molson Center in downtown Montreal that's now become the Bell Center. And there's a couple of things that are the secrets to success that we don't have with the Hershey Center, now the Paramount Center. Number one is transit. There's no transit that goes to the center, and that's critically important because not everyone wants to travel in a congested, roadway car to get to whatever the facility is. And successful facilities worldwide have to be on transit. Number two, there has to be attractive car transportation access. I always thought that if there was an exit and an entrance to Matheson on the 403, it would be so much easier to get to, and that would make sense. And you compare that to, one block south of the Air Canada Centre, the Scotiabank Arena, is the access to the Gardiner Expressway. 1 block south of the Bell Centre in Montreal is access to the highway, the interstate, the highway in Montreal. It's critical. In Edmonton with this new Rogers Place, there's an LRT station that is attached to the back of the arena. So, example after example, if you want to have success, you've got to have that access. This new $5 billion stadium in Los Angeles at 405 and 10 was moved from more downtown Los Angeles because they wanted to have access to the major interstates. The second is that you've got to have an urban environment. There's no suburban arenas left in the NHL. There's 2, one in Fort Lauderdale and one in Ottawa, in Canada. But other than that, everything else has moved downtown because you need an urban environment. Because when people go to an attraction, they want to make it at least an evening's entertainment or half-day entertainment. They want to go to a dinner. They want to go to a bar afterwards. They want to go to some cultural events. They want to see stuff happening, and that's how you justify the economics. So it's got to be in a place that has a sense of place rather than just in a field beside a highway. So I think that the location and access to the location was key. And then you've got to size it correctly for what the demand is. And you think about how the Argos have moved from Rogers Center to BMO Field. It's because Rogers Center was just too big, and BMO Field has that more intimate sense that you're close to the action and you're part of something happening. And if you've got a whole bunch of empty seats around you, you just don't feel like, why am I here if no one else is coming? And so I think it was sized incorrectly. Anyway,
well,
that must have been a fascinating project for you to be involved in.
It was incredible. But one of the key things I should mention is a man by the name of John Rajeski was in charge of that project, and he had absolutely no clue. And neither did the counselors. They were not prepared. They didn't have a lot of depth understanding. Mike McGee, he flew here in his private plane. To give you an idea, Scott Abbott was on my group. We were actually at the point, it was so insane. I had a meeting with Douglas Kilner. And at the time, Orlando wanted interest in building Heartland. And because of that, they were interested in building it at no cost. The players that I put on board within a 6-month period were insane. Scott Abbott taking the OHL franchise. Of course, Mississauga and the counselors, nobody could get their head in check. And in the end, Scott said, Linda, listen, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to move on. I want to get my arena. I've got the battalions. We sat up at the Devil's Pulpit and he was showing me his brand. It was fascinating. I was like, oh my God. And the interesting part is that no matter what happened, PCL Ellis Don, they're only in it to build. They didn't have the funding on the table at all. We had the funding on the table. We had Canadian corporate funding. That was one key element. There was talks about having the shares sold right in the bank, like maybe CIBC. I had Richard Devaney of the legal firm. I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. And that's what he does. His portfolio is unbelievable. It was astonishing. You can actually go into P3 Sports, P with the number 3, Pinizzotto, 3 boys, because you know my sons are all professional hockey players. I have 3 of them. So p3sports.ca, and it will show you the players that were on board. It will show you the plan. And we had 3 ancillary rinks. We had a food court. Mizuno said that they would do the soccer diamonds in the baseball field. We were talking about a whole garden. We talked about a bridge that went from the Hershey Center, which of course wasn't the Hershey Center at the time, from a private-public partnership to cross over to Iceland. Then you could hold world events because you have the dynamics to do it. We followed their platform where it would be 5,000 seated, but the extent of the package had so much growth. We were going to use parking only under the hydro lines. That was it. Why waste good land for parking? As a matter of fact, I talked to Johnny Bauer at that time because Cindy Bauer, she runs her schools, and Johnny Bauer runs his goalie schools. And that was there as well. So you see, like I had every element. I've been a realtor since 1979, right here in Mississauga. And I know the game. It's very simple. And unfortunately, the city, right from day one, when they put the proposal out there for a private-public partnership, had no clue what they were doing. But what they did do in the end, and you won't like this, they put a gag order on all of us. They basically said, we have the opportunity to take bits and pieces out of your proposal, and I still have the paperwork. We can take bits and pieces out of the proposal, and if you do not allow it, then you're out of the game completely. Your bid will not be able to be submitted. And we didn't know that. That was not a disclosure that was on the table at the initial stages. Because, for me, it was an awful lot of money, time, energy, knowledge, you name it, just to put this whole thing together and create the consortium. So, it was very mishandled back at that time. About a year later, and I have all that documentation as well, about a year later, there was actually an investigation in it because they wanted to go back and find out what went wrong. But it is impossible. I remember when Jerome became the general manager, way back. He tried. I went in and we were talking about things of what could happen and what could be done. There was no opportunity for a proper sponsorship because they couldn't get enough money because the city needed to take a lot of money out of there to keep it operating. But pretty much, I'm sure if I looked at their financials, they're in the red most of the time.
They're completely in the red. And
so that was a bit. I know you and I hadn't even talked about this. It just hit my mind today.
They're doing a major renovation right now that is costing, I think it's $29 million or something like that. And it's over budget and over time right now. We got to take a break for some messages. When we come back, we're going to talk about the condo. The condo business in Mississauga and the Greater Toronto area with Linda Pinizzotto, a broker, an agent involved in the real estate business since you said 1970s.
1979, and I have a branch. It's my own building. I bought a building right in Port Credit, an 8,000 square foot building, and it's great because I have my own group. So the Linda Pinizzotto Real Estate Group operates out of that building. Ryan Gilmore was kind enough to say, okay, Linda, let's work together. So he offered me the rights for a branch of Remax Realty Enterprise.
We're going to be back with Linda in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Dame Linda Pinizzotto. She's been involved in real estate, condos, et cetera, in Mississauga since the 1970s. She, as we just found out, was very involved in a bid to build a sports complex in Mississauga. And I've seen her and met with her and interacted with her in numerous different civil events in Mississauga over the years. And she really wanted to come on and talk about, the importance of real estate, of good action in Mississauga. And so I thought it'd be great to chat with her. Linda, the report that I read recently is that pre-construction condo sales in the Greater Toronto Area are down 71%.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening in the condominium business today?
Quite frankly, too much, too quick. You need better infrastructures in place. You need the ability for people to understand. First of all, most people don't even understand what they're buying when they buy a condo. And as you know, in March of 2010, I decided to challenge the Condominium Act, the provincial legislation.
And you were the president of the Condominium Association of Ontario.
Yeah, actually the founder. Yes. And it's kind of funny. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I started thinking about it. My husband said, Linda, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And he basically said, okay, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, go back to sleep. And I said, no, I have the whole thing in my mind. So I created it, branded it in the whole 9 yards. And the initiative was to open the Condo Act review, because in 2010, we had substantial development since 1998. That's when it all started. With more movement in condos. But the Condo Act was founded, or the first part of the major part of it was 1998. So it's the Condo Act of 1998. But by 2010, it needed to have several things. Property management companies needed to be licensed. I'm sorry, I hire an electrician, I'm paying $150 an hour, and they're licensed. Property management companies, managers are not licensed. They have $300,000 contracts. There's something wrong with this. So there needed to be much more accountability. There need to be more dispute resolution process, mediation, arbitration, a better way for condo owners to be able to speak up and protect their investment. The other thing that was extremely important as well is board members. I'm not faulting people for not having a particular expertise relating around business. I'm sure there's lovely people that want to give their time and energy, but you need knowledge. You're talking about, an extremely expensive condominium buildings, mega millions and millions and millions of dollars. And you've got to make the right decisions. And you can't be allowing property management managers to influence you. Some of them are making $50,000 a year. Yes, they've taken courses, but you are the director. You are responsible. You've agreed to stand a position. You need to have some detail, some information. So now, as you know, there's courses, but that was on the table as well. So there was a lot of things that were wrong with the Condominium Act of 1998, but no one stepped forward to say, hey, let's look at it. We had massive construction down on Blue Jays Way in front, as you know, that entire city place expanded like crazy. So with new construction, they also brought in the mandate that the builders now have to give a brochure to at least give some information. It's great to look at designs and concepts and plans and this and that, layouts, but you've got to know what you're buying. And I think transparency is so important. And that's what gives our beautiful province, our country growth, is being transparent. People need to know what they buy. I won't buy anything unless I understand it. So, so there's a lot of confusion in new construction right now. There's a lot of confusion. The price point at new construction level versus the resale is very different from one another. The resale market, people are scared to death because of these interest rates. Being in the business since 79, last year was the worst year for me. Not financially as far as selling. I was out there selling. But the amount of work I had to do to help people with their mortgages, with their renewal, with lines of credits they took. I mean, oh my God, I can't tell you how many people I had that were 3% mortgage rates, and bang, they get a call that, of course, they know that their mortgages come due last year. They get a call to explain to them why it's 10.59%.
50% of the mortgages come due in the next 2 years, 24 and 25.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
told, I chatted with a lawyer that said that he spends almost his whole day speaking to, almost desperate people because they can't get the mortgage that they committed to 2 or 3 years ago when they ended up signing on to this pre-construction condo purchase agreement. And they've now, the condo's finished, they got to close and they got to come up with the mortgage money, but they can no longer qualify.
100% they can't. And the other problem too is, again, everybody thinks like you, and I hate to hit my own industry, but I have to. We're outrageous. I mean, why are agents running around telling people to do assignments, and not assignments? I mean, they don't even know how difficult it is to do an assignment.
What's an assignment?
Explain to everybody. Is up to the builder. And who is going to have the money to match the down payment that was put in, match the increase of value, not be able to do it through any kind of mortgage funding, because who owns the property? The builder owns the property. You're trying to sell a piece of paper, and there's so many restrictions on it. You can't go on the MLS system, which is understandable. The builder needs to protect his interest. I have done 5 assignments, and every one of them has been a nightmare, just getting through the turmoil of it all. And then you're talking about the buyer's lawyer, the original buyer's lawyer. The present buyer is what I'm referring to as the second buyer, who's taking over the assignment, which is what they're doing. They're buying a piece of paper for an agreement that was made prior, the builder and the builder's lawyer. So, and this funding, I mean, not everybody has $200,000 sitting in a bank account that they can pull immediately in order to move forward. And then the question is, the buyer that's buying it, are they covering the cost of the extras? Okay, is that part of our agreement? What about the parking? And sometimes the one situation I had was out in Kitchener. The parking was a whole other declaration because it was a standalone. It wasn't totally involved. You've seen that before, because of the reciprocal agreements that were going on between the different phases. That was extremely complicated. So there's so many variables. Condominiums are complicated. They're not easy sales, and there's not enough training, certainly not enough knowledge out there. So exactly what you said.
So what's gone wrong? Why are we in this situation where condominium sales are down 71%?
Because everything happened way too much, too quick. We had, like, if you take all the variables that influence the real estate market, why did we have our tremendous boom? We had a lot of buyers. We had a lack of supply. I've seen every market since 1979. I remember when we had 21.75% interest rates back in 81. Remember that? It was about 6 months. It was about a 6-month haul at that time. And then it went up and down 12%. We were happy. Bang, when we went down to 1.8 on a variable rate, that was like gold. Why we are right now is because everything is being done too quickly. There's such a mad rush for immigration to come in, get more. Students can't find housing. You've got people in certain municipalities that are turning their entire basements into rooming houses. You're talking about laneway houses. Like where on earth? Now we're talking about fourplexes. There has to be structure. Tell
me a little bit about these fourplexes, because what they do is they, as of right, so you don't have to go through a committee of adjustment. You don't have to go through an approval process. You have a right to turn every house into a fourplex.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's a good idea? And do we have the infrastructure to allow it? I'm thinking about driveways, on-street parking, water, sewage, electricity. What do you think of the idea? Does it make sense?
No, it's absolutely ludicrous in my opinion. It's kind of an interesting thing when people say to me, "Belinda, condos." I know houses. Hell, I sold a $9 million house a couple of years ago right there by Casaloma. I worked from one spectrum to the other through ICI commercial, the entire thing. When you turn around, you talk about exactly, Brian, you're right on. Infrastructure. Where are the cars going to park? But aside from that, what about the excessive traffic on the roads itself?
Every suburban, if you listen to some of these people,
yes.
And what they're proposing goes through. Every single suburban street is going to have 4 times as much traffic. It's going to have 4 times as much cars. It's going to have 4 times as much driveway. It's going to have 4 times as much on-street. The driveways aren't going to expand, so you're going to have on-street parking, and it's an ideological idea that I worry is going to. It's misplaced. It's not thought through. It's going to be damaging to our society, to our communities, to our neighborhoods.
100%. Remember when second suites came out? Do you remember when the whole push was, let's take a look at second suites? I was a government relations chair for the Mississauga Real Estate Board for 8 years. And that's how I became even more so politically involved. And it was a great way for me to meet everybody. So when I decided to leave my chair position, I immediately started the COA. And that opened a tremendous amount of doors between going to Parliament Hill and Queen's Park and dealing with municipalities and so on. When Second Suites came in, I'll never forget it. We were in the room and I had to explain to the powers in the room exactly the type of homes. Like, in other words, where do you get access? Do you access through the garage? No, that's not allowed. You have to be through the side door. Okay, fine. Have to be completely separate. You need to do this. You need to do this. Now, I don't know if you recall, but Mayor Hazel McCallion was not in favor of that. But that was a provincial initiative. It was not a municipal initiative. There's been a little bit more regulation going on way in the past as far as basement apartments. But bringing in second suites was smart, without a doubt. Turning them into rooming houses now is not smart. And turning around and oversaturating communities is ludicrous. And I can actually talk about condos now on that too, because too much build too quick. And you wonder, you've got all this inventory and you're down 70% and you still want you to turn around and throw out building permits. I heard a rumor, as a matter of fact, down in Port Credit, that unfortunately some of those developments, not one penny of money went to Section 37 community funding. Nothing. So, I can switch around from here to here. I'm still upset that Stephen Daskell put basically $1.9 million of community funding for an outdoor rink. Seriously? When how far? 200 feet? We have Port Credit Arena and tons of land that we could have just expanded 360 and have an extension to that rink for 365 days a year. And we lasted, 4 times and not have warm weather when we have global warming? Is nobody sitting down and taking a look and connecting the dots? It seems to me that
explain this to me. So you're saying that that there was a proposal to upgrade Port Credit Arena and it was not done, and the money went to an outdoor?
No, I'm just saying that the logical thing to do. Do you know that I was actually in the, I'm not switching subjects, but it was kind of interest. Port Credit Arena a few years back was chosen to be in a Super Bowl commercial for Budweiser. And I was actually in that commercial, the lady with the red jacket coming in. And that was amazing. Do you know that Port Credit didn't do a damn thing about making that known? Why? This is Budweiser, and this is a commercial that was on the Super Bowl. You can look it up.
Pinizzotto was in it. Unbelievable.
You got it. But aside from that, it wasn't what I'm saying is having lived in this community. I live in Lorne Park. I own in Port Credit. Having lived in this community, and we have so much massive development, the lights have got to turn on that you take a look at Port Credit Arena. And if you have $1.9 million in your itchy fingers, where would you put it? In an outdoor rink? Or would you put it and start concentrating on taking that money as part of a proposal to bring in a community center and bring it right there where Port Credit Arena is? Or even just put a rink. I put that proposal together for a $70 million, as we talked about. I know the value of what it takes to do an indoor rink. $1.9 million was a complete waste of community funding. Okay, headed by Stephen Daskell. It should have never happened, ever. And we didn't even know about it. Next thing you know, we're hearing, oh, there's a rink. No sooner, about 3 weeks earlier, he got annoyed at me because I questioned him about Section 37 right at the BIA meeting. And he basically suggested it no longer exists. Really. When you're politically active, really, councillors need to have the respect of their citizens. Okay, we don't live behind closed walls. Okay, we have computers. We hope to have a community environment. So there's so many things that are wrong. Municipalities need to take a look at OBIA. The Ontario provincial government needs to look at OBIA, the Ontario Business Improvement Area, and find out how their spending is going. We had $1.2 million worth of funding with Port Credit, BIA. What is going on in Port Credit? A bloody mess, quite frankly. I love Southeast Oakville, by the way. It's gorgeous. Trafalgar Road and Lakeshore is gorgeous, clean, well-kept, organized, planned, elite.
So what went
Classy.
wrong in Port Credit? You take a look at the old town of Oakville and downtown Oakville. They've completely changed the sidewalks, the parking, and they've attracted some really good tenants, and it becomes a place where people go for a walk. Whenever it's nice outside. Port Credit is
Yeah.
4 lanes plus parking, and a lot of the retail has moved out and it's been replaced just by bars and restaurants. And we've got crime in Port Credit now, guns. What's gone wrong, do you think?
Um, Actually, quite frankly, representation, bad judgment. It seems to me that Port Credit only seems to run from the Port Credit River to Highway 10. Somewhere along the way, there is lack of attention and representation from Highway 10 all the way over to the border of where you will hit Lakeview. Quite frankly, it's very, those poor business owners, okay, they work hard, man. They work so hard. They go and they get their financing. They're so excited. They have balloons out front, and what do they get? They get what? An antique car show to do what, where, when? I'm not knocking it. I like the antique car show. My point of my matter is there's nothing else happening. All the attention gets orchestrated all between the Port Credit River to Highway 10. Yet 600 plus members of the Port Credit. You want to hear something interesting? Do you know there was only about 25 business owners that went to the BIA AGM for elections? And do you know 2 years ago, they did not read the votes that night? The meeting, the AGM started at 6 p.m. and it's supposed to end at 9. A lovely gentleman was there to give us the history of Port Credit. Unfortunately, timing, maybe that should have been an initiative after the vote was made, or taken rather, right? Because they have the votes. It's right there. It's under key, but they didn't read them. So what they did do is, I'll tell you straight out what they did, because I'm really not happy. I own down there and I care about the neighborhood and I care about the people and I care what's going on what's going on with this within the city. So I had actually put my name in. I've got the biggest heart you could possibly imagine. I had 7 kids living in my house during billet times, started the COA, by the way, never took 1 penny. I funded it this entire time personally. It's really sad when you as an individual, I put my name in as a candidate. And that evening we were about 10 to 9 and they didn't count the votes yet. And then they made the statement that, sorry, they can't count it because they've run out of time. They're going to defer it. They called the meeting to an end. Now that's not even democratic.
It sure isn't.
I have never in my entire life, not in that, watch this. This is unreal. There's no online voting. There's no proxy voting. You have to be present. People are business owners. They had no way to represent, and they're exhausted because they feel that it's a lost cause. So they called the meeting. Okay, done. I want to know when these votes are going to get counted. Then I was told that I am tied. I'm tied with another person. So they're going to have to figure out how to break a tie or figure out a tie or who wins the tie or whatever they're going to do. So anyway, so then I got the call back saying, well, they're going to talk to the city clerk. Oh, really? Since when does the clerk have anything to do with a voting process in a BIA? So I questioned it. The next comment that I got back was, well, I think we're going to have to talk to the councillors. What, all the councillors? Trust me, councillors don't care about other wards. So you're going to go to what, Ward 10 to ask them what's going on down in Port Credit? Seriously? So it monkeyed around. I had to go to a convention in Vegas. There was a phenomenal REMAX convention. And then I got the call. And the call was, oh, Linda, you are tied. What we're going to do is we're going to run the vote again. Please resend in your resume. And we're going to take it from there. I said, excuse me, let me explain something. Number one, I'm a Dane. That's honesty, integrity. That's where I got knighted from all my hard work and who I am. Retract, take away my name. I want nothing to do with the executive. Period. And I hope you get this sorted out. And quite frankly, Obia needs to give their head a shake because their head office is right there in Port Credit. They need to watch what's going on in their own back door. Anyway, so aside from all of that, okay, so a woman ended up, the other person that I was supposedly competing with stepped down right afterwards. So, manipulation where you stood, Brian, I feel for you. And not to switch up around in conversation, but I feel for you because when good people have something to say, they have the knowledge, they have the integrity, and they have the ability, okay, and certainly the experience, and they're able to go in there and give us as local citizens information so that we can make an objective decision with the right facts is the way that we are supposed to be running this entire mayor campaign. And right now, like, honestly, I'm disgusted. I am totally disgusted. And I look at the candidates and I wonder, excuse me, I have more information than you do. I have more knowledge. And quite frankly, I have more guts to be able to do by the people. And I'm not interested in just going, oh, let's just call the select 24 people that we love, who are always beside us because they feel important. They know a counselor and they'll be there for your ribbon cutting. Fantastic. That is not what a mayor is about. So people need to start identifying what is it that they want in that seat to represent our city, our beautiful city. Because what's going on now, and I mean, and why are councillors running around chopping their heads off and saying, hey, yeah, we need to make sure we get X amount of new construction and new build and and affordable housing. Since when are condos affordable housing? I'm sorry. $1,000, $1,200, $1,400 a square foot? What's going on? I'm giving information to the military now, to the Order of St. George, because we have an initiative called Homes for Heroes. I found a piece of property actually that is absolutely ideal. I'm not hired. This is goodwill. This is a freebie. This is take my knowledge. If I can give enough information to you, I hope to God it helps. Sorry, I don't want to be ranting, but
I appreciate it, but we've got to take a break for some messages because we actually have to make a profit. And so we've got to fit a message in. We're going to be back in 2 minutes with Dame Linda Pinizzotto talking about really your frustration with the democratic process in Mississauga and in Port Credit, and what you think it takes to be a good mayor, and that you're frustrated with the whole process right now. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be back in just 2 minutes.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Dame Linda Pinizzotto. She's been involved in the real estate business in Mississauga since 1979. She, on her own, started an organization called the Condominium Owners Association of Canada. She's got 3 sons that have played professional hockey. She said she's had up to 5 kids in her house when she was building hockey players. She put in a bid to build a sports complex comparable to the Hershey Center back a couple decades ago. She's been very involved in Mississauga society, and she's got some strong opinions in regards to, frankly, the lack of democracy that's going on both in the mayoralty campaign right now as well as in some other areas in Mississauga. Linda, let me ask you a few quick questions, if we could, in the time we've got remaining. I think that traffic in South Mississauga is going to be a disaster. And I really wonder about how it's come to be. Brightwater is going to be, I think, between 10 and 15,000 people. And Lakeview is going to be between 25 and 50,000 people, depending on whether this doubling of the density with the MZO goes through. And both of them have got great pictures and great developments of what they are going to be. And so I'm not blaming the developers per se, but they haven't added one lane to any roadway. They haven't added any transit other than the Huron-Ontario LRT that comes down to the Port Credit Go, which is quite a long way. There's no one that's going to walk all the way from either Lakeview or Brightwater to the Port Credit Go. Am I right or am I wrong that traffic on Lakeshore, on Huron-Ontario, on Mississauga Road, on Cawthra, on Dixie is going to be a complete disaster?
100%. I'd love to know whether TEDSCO there and DASCO had any conversation with one another, because, that should have been a joint venture where discussions are made from Clarkson right through over to Lakeview. The entire South Mississauga should have had extensive conversation, prior to any of this going forward. From what I understand, much of the designs and so on were on the table in 2016 to 2018. And again, I mentioned community funding. If you could please check to see if we received 1 penny of Section 37 would really be helpful. Because, the traffic problem, I came home one day, okay? I came home one day and all of a sudden I saw a sign on Clarkson Road. I've lived in this neighborhood here in Lorne Park, since the mid 70s. I moved in 75. And it basically said on it that the whole service road there is going to be shut down from October 23 to December 24. I had to do a double take. I couldn't believe all of a sudden there's this sign. I couldn't believe of what's happening with all, with the construction, like the different sites that are now on the table and people are upset about. They're upset about the one at Jack Darling next where the gardens that they're talking about putting the ship, I think it's called. It's a new build that's going to be a ship. People are up in the air of that. They're up in the air about the Inwell situation right next to the Dairy Queen. When you ask me about, the traffic, I don't think that people saw it coming. The beautiful homes along Mississauga Road, I don't believe that the owners along that strip even understood fully of what the impact would be. When you look now at the ramp and the addition and the extension of what's going on right there on Port Credit, widening the bridge and the massive development, and changing the sewer systems now, I don't understand. Like, the problem is we are the citizens of Mississauga. There has to be better communication. And that doesn't mean, and sure, people are going to say, oh, you know what? I don't want to go to the meeting tonight, really. Well, since when did any one of these two councillors turn around and put it into what we're doing right now? Open the door. Let everybody get in on Zoom. Correct? When the budget was launched, I'm the Condo Owners Association is invited to the Ontario budget every year. We are right there before it hits the public. Right there. So why in our various municipalities around our city isn't there some kind of mandate ruling of some sort forcing these councillors now to go in an electronic platform and a personal platform and do better?
So,
because right, the traffic.
Linda, so I think you agree with me that the transit, that the traffic in South Mississauga is going to be a disaster.
And you know what happened? I met with Rudy Cassato several months ago, and I had heard that we had the ability to have a parking garage at Port Credit Go Station. It was right there. It was ours. That land was given. And it turned out that, with the councillor and the Ratepayers Association, they couldn't get their act together. The province kept saying, come on, make a decision, make a decision. It wasn't made. So fine. They turned around and sold it to the highest bidder. There goes our garage.
Linda, if fourplexes are a bad idea, which you and I've talked about, and we're going to have huge amount of congestion in South Mississauga because of the lack of any kind of transportation thought, let alone improvement in regards to Brightwater and Lakeview. But we do have a need for housing. Where should the increased housing go?
You mean staying within Mississauga?
Yeah.
Or going outside of Mississauga?
In Mississauga. If we, we say we have this housing crisis, this housing affordability crisis. We need more housing. We need more affordable housing. Where should it go?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I'm really glad you brought it on the table. First of all, unfortunately, Mississauga is not really an affordable space any longer.
It's not.
It's not affordable. I mean, unless you have people that are doing exactly that, renting, turning their basements into rooming houses, and maybe those people are saving money because they're living on cheaper standards, versus going to rent a condo. 2-bedroom condos at Brightwater are renting out. They're 640 square feet, and they're renting out for $3,000 a month. I don't call that affordable housing.
It's not affordable for 600 square feet.
Yeah, it's about 640. I did a deal on
640 square feet.
Yeah, and it is a 2-bedroom, and the bedrooms
that's tiny.
It's extremely tiny. It's
and it's
extremely
going
tiny.
for
It's a
3,000
no
bucks.
wasted space concept. Okay, because as you know, I mean, talking real estate here, because you're so well versed in real estate as well. Because I touched a little bit on City Place. They designed, they designed their units and they switched it up. Do you remember when it was a center hall plan? You could come in the front door of a condo and you separate the kitchen is here, the bathroom is here, the living room, the dining room, everybody. The bedroom had a front window, the living room had a window, correct? Okay, then they turned it around and said, okay, fine, they don't need the windows anymore in the bedroom. So now they have the sliding glass door that's a window. And therefore, they had to make it more vertical as opposed to horizontal. And so the buildings got switched up, like the interior floor plan. The only problem is with the City Place designs, you lose a ton of space in hallways, a ton of space. So what they did over there, that they changed that up. They've got it back more center hall, but it's all congested. So if you have the two bedrooms, yeah, you can't be fitting king size beds. They're down the tube. You're borderline queen? No, most likely doubles, a double bed. So we're back to double beds. So no, I mean the affordability level in Mississauga. I think that maybe an alternative design could be a sense of land lease. Take the value of land right out of there. To live in Mississauga, you may want to start considering Lakeview areas where you have, as you know, you have a ton of industrial commercial, especially industrial in that neighborhood. There's probably going to be a massive cleanup. Maybe they're going to move up to Matheson. I've done a ton of Matheson, up Shawson, all that area, Britannia, and so on. If you take the equation of land value out of there, and you talk about affordable housing, you can give people still affordability. They just don't own the land, or
Are
maybe
development fees an issue?
Well, years ago they had lease back land. They had a whole bunch of them way up in Malton, believe it or not. When I bought my first condo when I was 19 years old. I bought my first condo.
Linda, are development fees an issue?
Well, development fees are an issue, absolutely, because it all goes back to the bottom line again. So I guess if we, because, the builders, all the development fees, every costs, I mean, some of the condos now are not buying out mechanical units, they're leasing mechanical units, correct?
Yeah,
They're
but
getting,
I apologize. We don't have a lot of time. I wanted to
yeah,
focus you on this development fee. Some of the politicians are saying that when they jack up development fees, it's rich developers that are paying it. Other people are saying, no, you charge development fees, development taxes, they just get passed on in the price of the condominium or the rent. And the
of course.
consumers end up paying it. That's part of the cost of the lack of affordability. What's your sense? Did developers take the development fees out of their profit, or do they pass it on to the consumer?
Well, they have no reason to be taken out of their profit. They pass it on to the consumer.
Which makes it
I mean,
more affordable.
everything,
So when the
right,
city increases
right.
development fees, it's the consumers, the new buyers of homes, the young people that are trying to get into the market that are paying it, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I don't know why anybody would come up with that comment because they need to pay attention here. The
They're not paying
builders,
attention.
obviously, nobody's paying attention. The builders obviously are building a product. They want to make the most amount of profit that they can based on fair market value in real estate is the price that a seller is willing to sell for and the price that the buyer is willing to pay.
So, Linda, we've got 4 city councilors that are currently running for mayor. They're all career politicians. Do you think that they can solve this problem?
No, they're career politicians. I'm sorry. My experience on career politicians right now is that they don't have enough knowledge in the world that we have entered into. We are not back 20 years ago. We're in mass development. We're in massive changes. We have, the IT, the AI. Like, you just look at where we are today. It's a no-brainer for people. We need to allow people time to catch up with knowledge, not go and be around in a ribbon cutting. Like, that bothers the living daylights out of me. I can't even tell you. The bottom line is very simple is I don't need a robot reading a speech or reading a document that was put in front of them. I want them to understand what the hell they're reading and understand the impact around it and understand where the potential is. When I sit down with my clients, I never put anybody in a car immediately and say, come in with me. I mean, mind you, nowadays we drive separately, but the point is I don't book a damn showing. until they understand what they're doing. And they have the information, they know the knowledge, they have the variables, they have all the things that they have. Why do we have politicians making decisions on things without finishing the puzzle? How does this affect this? How does that affect this? How does that affect this?
Do you
I
think
saw
that
that
Mississauga is better off today than it was in the past?
Pardon me?
Is
I'm sorry?
Mississauga better today than it was in the past?
No, no.
Have we got some problems in Mississauga today?
Well, of course we do. And that's why I'm so pleased that you called me in on this discussion. I really am. There's a lot. Look at, you know what? There's a lot of people, and we all have different personalities. There are people that are willing to learn as much as they possibly can learn. I absolutely love Warren Buffett. Since Charlie passed away, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's been on the news constantly now in the last, since that time. And, my sympathies to that, because he is such an instrumental person. He's incredible. And why he amazes me so much is he's taken time to try to educate people now. He has this wealth of knowledge. I'm still learning. You're still learning. We're all learning. Okay, and that's how you move ahead. But there's people that are unwilling to learn. They're unwilling to budge. They're unwilling to budge, and they don't look at the full picture.
And they only want to listen to the other, the other people in
the
the elite group. I think it's just terrible. Linda, I apologize. We're out of time. We got to call it. Thank you so much, Dame Linda Pinizzotto, for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I
We're going to
welcome
take a break for some messages and be back with some final comments in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everyone. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.